So my friends, this is my 6-month update for the LG C4 OLED, and I'm giving you all of my settings. Don't forget to hit the red button to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up and click the notification bell to get my next video first. So I've had the C4 now for around 6 months and it is a stunning TV. If you're thinking about getting it and you can get it at a good price now, then definitely just go ahead and do it. It's one of the best TVs that I've had and I'm absolutely thrilled with it. Nothing at all has gone wrong with it in the last 6 months. There is no sign of any wearing, any age, as you would expect. I'm not saying that you should have any problems with it. It is like new straight out of the box. In a second, I'm going to go through all of my settings for SDR, HDR and Dolby Vision, and hopefully you can have your TV set up like I have mine. Now, I'm not saying that this is the right or wrong way to do it, it's just how I like it. And I know that some will agree with me and others will probably argue. And if you want, then please do feel free to argue and just use the comments to do that. But I'm really happy with how mine's set up for all of these different modes. So let's get started and let you know what I've got. So we're going to start off with a couple of tests. Now, first of all, just sharpness. We're now 6 months down the line. Sharpness is just as good as you would expect. It's perfectly sharp in all 4 corners. Now, if you've got a TV and you want to run these tests on your TV, then do click the link in the description or the pop-out that comes out if you're watching this on some other type of device, and you'll be able to see how well your TV does. But certainly from a motion point of view, no problems at all. And when it comes to screen uniformity and the colors, again, there's absolutely no sign of image retention. Now, I wouldn't expect any, but I do have to say that over 3 or 4 years now, I've just not had any even little glimpse of any type of image retention on an older TV, and I think it's almost a thing of the past and you don't have to worry about it. So if you are holding back on an OLED because of it, well then don't. Okay, so the first things that I would do when I set my TV up is don't use AI Picture Pro. If you're not going to be using a soundbar, then you can use AI Sound Pro. Go into the settings screen, and first of all we're going to change some settings which will have a dramatic effect on your TV. If you go down to General, and then you go down to AI Service, make sure all of these settings are turned off. And then go right down to AI Recommendation, and this is where you get these smart tip pop-ups and smart tips in settings. Just turn both of those off and you won't get annoyed by those. Okay, come out of AI Service, but stay in General, and then go all the way down to Energy Saving. From here, you need to make sure that the energy saving step is turned off. Otherwise, it will automatically dim your TV and you'll never get it looking as bright as what it should. Okay, so when you go into the picture mode on all of the different modes that you're on, make sure that you change the aspect ratio under user selection to original. Now this applies to SDR, HDR, Dolby Vision, but it doesn't apply to gaming. So other than gaming, which you leave at 16:9, change everything else to original aspect ratio. Okay, let's go on now to SDR settings. So SDR is standard dynamic range, and that will likely be your normal cable box or satellite connection, and normal TV, or anything that doesn't say HDR or Dolby Vision. Now it's important when we're changing these settings that you're in the correct mode, so you're playing an SDR content to change the SDR settings, and likewise if you're playing an HDR content then you'll be able to change the HDR settings, and Dolby Vision, you need to be in Dolby Vision content in order to change those. So we're now in SDR settings. And the easiest way to find that out is when you go into picture settings, it won't say HDR and it won't say Dolby Vision. You know that you're in SDR. The first thing that we're going to do is go down and turn it into Filmmaker mode. Filmmaker mode is the most accurate right out of the box. We're then going to go back and we're going to go into advanced settings. On brightness here, you've got OLED brightness. Now, really this needs to be lower than 80. It's over bright unless you're in a really, really bright room. The range that I would use would be dependent on your room. Anything from around 25 if you're in a really dark room, going up to around 60. Now I'm in a bright room at the moment, so I'm going to keep mine at 60. The contrast you can keep at 85. The black level, if you wish, you can change that, but I'm going to keep mine at 50. Auto dynamic contrast, again, you don't need to have that on, and peak brightness, you don't need to worry about that. Gamma, I'm going to change to 2.2 because I'm in a brighter room and I will get a little bit more shadow detail. If you're in a really dark room, then just keep it at 1886. Video range, keep to auto, and motion eye care, keep that turned off. Okay, we're going to go back now and then we're going to go down to clarity. Now here you can change different things like the sharpness. Now a lot of these things will change dependent on your view. Now adjusting sharpness, really anything between 0 and 10 isn't really relevant anyway. It's only once you start getting up around 20 and above that you'll start to see any difference. So it doesn't really matter what you do, but keep all of these other things turned off other than true motion. Now this again is down to a personal choice. Now I do suffer from having some screen judder on certain things that I watch, and so I do turn it on. I don't worry about the soap opera effect because I've never really noticed it myself personally. If you do notice the soap opera effect, then you might want to turn true motion off. So this is something which you can just play with yourself personally and see how it affects you. But certainly one of the first two settings probably won't cause much of an issue. Then when you go back, you just need to click apply to all inputs, and then everything with an SDR content will play in that way. And this is what it ends up looking like. And I think, as probably most people will agree, it looks absolutely stunning. Okay, what about HDR content? Now this is what these TVs are really for. So when you're playing some HDR content, you'll see it automatically says HDR before the different modes. Again, put it into filmmaker mode and then go down to advanced settings. So there's a couple of things to change here. OLED pixel brightness, leave at 100, and contrast, leave at 100. Now black level, I've actually got mine set to 47, and that's down to dynamic tone mapping. Dynamic tone mapping this year is absolutely fantastic. It really does do a great job. It doesn't have the same problem with the darker scenes that it has had in previous years. But because it is giving you that extra brightness, you may want to just dumb down the black levels just by 1 to 3 points. But other than that, keep expression enhancer off, peak brightness to high, and motion eye care off. Okay, so let's come back out of that screen and now go down to color. And keep the color depth at 50 and tint at 0. If you want to change it, you can just use the slider, but there's no need to change it. Color 50 is correct. And color gamut at auto detect and fine tune. Color adjustment off, everything in there just leave. In white balance, now on my particular screen, again I don't know whether it's just me or my eyes, but I left the color temperature to 50. You can change it and you'll see immediately as you change it, it gets cooler as you go up and warmer as you go down. But 50 is really where it should be. But the one thing that I have just made a slight adjustment on are the points on the colors. And I've taken the green down to -5. And I've taken the blue down to -10. There were just some scenes that just seemed almost too green and too blue, and I found that that was about the right balance. On clarity, again, this is going to be down to personal preference, a lot of these things. Sharpness, again, around 15, and doesn't really make any difference. You're not going to notice any changes there. It's only when you get above probably 30 or 40 that you're going to start seeing any difference. But again, don't have it up that type of high. Keep it down anywhere from probably 15 to 0 is correct. Super resolution, I've got that set to low, and noise reduction, I've also got that set to low. Again, these things you can go in, you can change them and see how they feel. It doesn't affect anything. You're not going to break anything by trying different things. Noise reduction is low, and MPEG noise reduction is low. And smooth gradation, again, I've got that set to low. Real cinema is grayed out, and true motion, again, this is the motion smoothing, so you might want to have that anywhere from cinematic movement to natural. Anything above that, and I think it's too much, but that is my settings for HDR content. So again, you can then go down and apply that to all settings. Right, let's have a look what that looks like. Okay, so for me, I've got the perfect balance between having brilliant blacks still, but still getting that slight extra brightness, and it's not over bright. It's not too glary at all. It just looks absolutely beautiful. Okay, so let's now move on to Dolby Vision. Now here it is slightly interesting because there is a new mode this year. You do also get filmmaker mode in Dolby Vision. Now if you're watching your Dolby Vision content in a bright room, I suggest starting with Cinema Home. But if you're watching it in a darkish room, or it's normally at night for instance, then I would start off making the changes in filmmaker mode. You can always do both and see which one you prefer. But filmmaker mode is probably going to be the most accurate, and so that's where we're going to start from today. Okay, so from the filmmaker mode, go now into advanced settings and then go into brightness. Now, if you do find that you're in a room and it just feels a little bit too bright, then one of the things you can do here is just adjust that black level by maybe 2 or 3 points down to 48 or 47, and that will just introduce a little bit more darkness, and it's quite easily to control how much you want to introduce. But make sure you've got everything else turned off and peak brightness turned on. Okay, so just leave the rest of that menu as it is, with motion eye care turned off, and then go back out and then into color. Here you can keep it exactly the same, the color depth of 50, and if you want to fine tune, well, you don't need to bother, so I would just skip that if I was you. With the white balance, again, if you want to make some changes here, it's down to personal preference. It is actually very accurate exactly how it is, but from white balance you can adjust the color temperature. For instance, if you find it a little bit too warm, then you can take it to a slightly cooler scene. I would probably recommend not going more than up to around 45 or something like that. But for me, 50 was exactly where it needed to be, and so I just left it at that setting. Everything else in there was absolutely fine. I didn't have the same green or blue issues that I had on SDR settings, and so therefore I left those exactly the same. Okay, in clarity, again, here you can go in if you want to, you can adjust the sharpness. Now, I did take the sharpness up to 20, and that just seemed to be the right level for me. Super resolution, again, play with those by all means. It doesn't really add too much. I would probably just leave them all off. And with true motion, again, you can either use one of the presets, so cinematic movement or natural movement, or you can use the actual user selection. But if you do use the user selection, literally change it by 2 or 3 points. So have de-judder to around 2 or 3 and de-blur to around 1, 2 or 3. But again, if you're finding that you can't get the exact right motion with the presets that are above, then try user selection. It doesn't hurt to give it a go. You can always go back and reset it. And remember, any changes that you're making today, guys, you can reset and take it right back to the original settings very, very simply. Apply to all inputs, and then you've got your Dolby Vision set up. Now, I don't like having Dolby Vision set up for 2 different room modes. I prefer just having one setup, which I can then use in a light room and in a dark room. So this is really the balance between the pair. As I said earlier, the one thing, if you haven't got a soundbar and you haven't got a sound system, then you might want to turn on in the AI settings is AI Sound Pro. And if you do want the screen to adjust automatically brightness compared to the room, well then try AI brightness, but I don't like that myself personally. Okay, so now for gaming, I've got HDR gaming enabled, and the first thing that we're going to do from the general settings is we're going to go down to external devices and then into HDMI settings. Now, if you use your console for watching a lot of video content, then I recommend turning off 444 pass-through. If you just use it for gaming, well then you can enable it and you won't have any issues. Now, your console will default the picture into HDR Game Optimizer, but I find that this is a little overprocessed, and so I always put mine into Filmmaker mode, and then we just make a couple of changes. So you can see the difference, Game Optimizer and now Filmmaker mode. It's much more better for some cinematic games, and also if you're using your console for watching movies, for instance, you won't get that sometimes harsh look that Game Optimizer gives you. Now, you're still going to get the really fast refresh rates because your console will have auto low latency mode, and so therefore it will pick it up from there. And finally, the only other thing I do is change super resolution and just turn that off. Everything else is grayed out, so you don't need to worry about anything else within those setting screens. Now you can go to color, and again, if you want to change the warmth of the white balance, for instance, then you can feel free to do that. It's not actually necessary to make any changes at all. So you still have access to the Game Optimizer, and you can go into the Game Optimizer settings and in fact the all settings, and you can see here that the auto low latency mode is switched on. Okay guys, that is pretty much it. So my friends, I've left latest price links for the LG C4 in the description, so you can check out whether you can still get this at an incredible price, which at the time of doing this video, you certainly can. But this is a brilliant TV. Don't think twice about buying this TV. I've got the LG G4 as well, and for the money saving on the C4, I don't think that you would be disappointed. That's it for this video, my friends. If it's been helpful, then please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next.